Well, one of the most important things in trying to get an academic position is to understand exactly how it is that appointment committees work. And it's fair to say that I think a lot of people have a rather naive and unrealistic view of what this actually is. One of the things to realise is that in almost half of all academic appointments, the candidate who's successful and gets the job often has only the most tangential and distant relationship to the kind of description and specification that was originally advertised. And looking at this, the unsuccessful candidates may indeed wonder what on earth is going on. And this is where having a naive idea about how search and appointment committees works comes in. There's a common notion that essentially it's some kind of rather Olympian, disinterested, detached exercise in which the department gets together and collectively decides what's in their best interest, what kind of candidate they want, what kind of subject area they want. A bit like an idealised version of the papal conclave, in fact. Now, if you've done any papal history, you'll know that if the Holy Spirit does indeed work through papal conclaves to choose the right man to be pope, it does so in a rather mysterious way, and the same is true of academic selection committees. Essentially, what happens when a position becomes available at a department is that there's an enormous, well, not quite a row, but a warm and frank discussion, shall we say, usually. In other words, departmental politics come into play, and typically any department is going to have lots of different ideas amongst its members as to what they want, who they want, what kind of person they're looking for. This means that typically the shortlist of people who are flown out for interview contains candidates, each of whom is favoured by one of the factions within the department, and that's, you will realise this quite quickly on the day usually. What you need to be, to maximise your chances in many cases, is to be the dark horse candidate, the candidate who's put on the fly-in list because their application is simply outstanding, they have really good references, they've had support from important or well-connected people in the field, and therefore they've been put on the list, but who are not actually associated with any faction in the department or any particular agenda in terms of the academic development of the department. And the thing to do is to maximise your chances of being the dark horse who comes through unexpectedly and gets the position. So two things to come from that. One is that if you do get a fly-in interview and you're unsuccessful, don't be disheartened. You may well have done brilliantly. In fact, you probably have done. It's just that you aren't exactly what the department's working for. Something has been going on behind the scenes which you will certainly have no idea about, and which the successful candidate probably has no idea about either. So don't worry about the fact that you didn't get the job. The fact that you've got to fly an interview normally is enough of a bonus. From there on, a lot of things are simply out of your control. Secondly, though, there are some things you can do. There are three things really that you want to put across when you are there, which enhance your chances of being that dark horse. First, you have to come across as nice, as a person that your interviewing panel will think you're a good colleague, you'll be a person it's nice to work with. Secondly, you have to come across as interesting, as having an interesting project, an interesting set of ideas, an interesting research agenda, something that intrigues them, something they'd like to know more about. And thirdly, you have to come across very clearly as being someone who will be productive and valuable in the future, because that, more than anything else, is what they're looking for. If you can tick those boxes, then the fact that you may have only a relatively loose relationship to the actual specification or the original advert is nothing like as much of a handicap as you might in fact imagine, given the kind of internal dynamics of a lot of departmental selection processes.